Hello and welcome to my guide to Kargath Bladefist on normal and heroic difficulty. This is a single phase boss that honestly is not particularly hard. It is the very first boss in Warlords of Draenor, so the mechanics are perhaps a little bit soft. And the general flow of the fight is that you will just basically fight Kargath and deal with his abilities, but then periodically he will throw people up into the crowd of the Colosseum. Once up there they will deal with a few things and then go back down to the regular Colosseum, and essentially you'll rinse and repeat that until Kargath dies, so there really isn't a great deal to worry about. Now then, time to talk about the flow of the fight and the abilities that he uses. So first of all, he does Blade Dance. This will cause him to move to someone's location, do a 7-yard AoE, and then return to his original location. So what you want to do for this is spread out so that only one player is hit by this ability. Now another thing that you will notice in this fight is a whole bunch of flame pillars. These will toggle between being active and inactive. Just simply don't stand in them. If you stand on top of an inactive one and then it's activated, you'll take heavy damage and be knocked back, and of course, standing in the fire is generally a pretty bad idea when it comes to this game. Now, the next ability that is pretty scary for everyone is Berserker Rush. So this is what pretty much causes the most deaths, but it is actually one of the most avoidable abilities. He will focus on a player and start to follow them. While doing this, he does a constant forward slash, so you must not be hit by this. To deal with this mechanic, you must kite Kargath into one of the flame pillars, and once that happens, he will stop the Berserker Rush, he'll stop fixating, and he'll just beat on the flame pillar for a little bit of time. So, if you're a ranged player, you must be aware of your nearest flame pillar, and I would actually recommend just trying to stand near enough, or at least in the general area of a flame pillar, but of course, be sure that you're not within 7 yards of another player for Blade Dance. If you're standing near one, then it's just going to be very easy to deal with Berserker Rush. Now, the next thing that he does is Chain Hurl, which I talked about earlier. So, he will choose 5 people and throw them up into the stands. He chooses the nearest 5 players, so you definitely want to organize that beforehand, such that 3 DPS, 1 tank, and 1 healer go up. Now, while you're up there, you must focus on killing mobs, else those mobs will deal a lot of damage to the rest of the raid. Your main priority is to kill the Drunken Bile Slingers and Iron Bombers. The bombers will do a heavily damaging dot on players, and the Bile Slingers will put acid pools on the floor. So that stuff's just not stuff that you want your raid to be dealing with. Now the bombers, when they're killed up in the stands, will explode, so do be sure to move away from them. The grunts will also slow you, and the Bile Slingers will stun people in front of them, so there are definitely some mechanics that you need to watch out for while you are up on the stands. You need to pull as much as the tank or healer can handle, and then just AoE them down as fast as possible before you get kicked off the stands. Ideally, you want to choose the strongest AoE DPS in your raid for this role. Now finally, he's got a tank ability called Impale. This happens every 45 seconds, and it applies a 75-second tank debuff that increases your damage taken from Impale by 100%. The best way to deal with this is just to have the tank with the shortest duration on their debuff to take the Chain Hurl. That means that by the time they get back from being on the stands, their stacks of Impale should have fallen off, and yes, overall that's probably the best way to deal with this. Now finally, there are also 2 pits with angry cats in them. Just don't jump in there and don't get mauled by the angry cats. Honestly, that's it though. That's all the mechanics of this fight covered. It's not particularly hard. After all, this is the very first boss of Warlords of Draenor. They're not going to make it like Lei Shen Heroic or something. Now, I'll just quickly cover what you need to be aware of for every role. So, if you're a DPS, first of all, Heroism at the start of the fight, or Bloodlust if you're a Horde, and that's just the time where you'll get the most efficiency out of it, because, you know, trinket procs, pre-pots, etc. Also, you want to kite Kargath into the flame pillars if he fixates on you with Berserker Rush. Also, you just want to not stand inside the flame pillars or near an active flame pillar. Then, maintain a 7-yard spread so that Blade Dance does not hit multiple people. Also, if you're one of the players who will be up in the stands, then stand near Kargath during Chain Hurl, and once you're up there, focus down the Bile Slingers and Bombers. If you are not going to be up in the stands, then don't stand near Kargath when Chain Hurl happens. And that's really it for the DPS. There's 1 or 2 things, for an example, the Bile Slingers throw their acid stuff down on the floor or whatever, just don't stand in that stuff. And in general, don't, like, for an example, run in front of Kargath when he's doing Berserker Rush. It's honestly all pretty self-explanatory. Next, for the tanks, you just want to move away from Kargath when he does Berserker Rush. Obviously, you'll be pretty close to him when that happens, so you need to be on the ball there. Also, tank him in the center of the room. This will give people just lots of mobility and options when it comes to dealing with Berserker Rush, and sort of kiting him into just a conveniently placed flame pillar. Also, if you're a tank and you've got multiple stacks of the Impale debuff, then you definitely want to use a cooldown because the damage can get quite heavy. And then finally, the tank with the shortest Impale debuff should be the one who takes the Chain Hurl. Next, for the healers, you just need to prepare for heavy tank damage whenever Kargath uses Impale. Also, Blade Dance can cause quite a lot of raid-wide damage, especially if your group is not spreading properly. Then you want to, like everyone else, move away from Berserker Rush, or if he focuses on you, then kite him into one of the Flame Pillars. And just in general, if you're a healer, be aware of the various mechanics that can hurt people. If you're up on the stands, then, you know, the bombers exploding can do a lot of damage to those who are up there. And if you're one of the healers who is not on the stands, then you're definitely going to have more personal responsibility, because there'll be a lot of DPS just sort of being rained down upon the raid, and that damage can be a little bit tricky. Anyway, that's really it for the fight, and best of luck to you if you're going to be doing this soon, and be sure to stay tuned to the channel and subscribe for daily Warlords of Draenor content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.